Hi, everyone. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us for our Wisconsin Healthy School Meals for All kickoff meeting. We're going to give it just a few more minutes to admit any extra attendees coming in on the Zoom. But while we get set up today, I'll ask you all to mute yourself and turn your camera on if you are comfortable, and we'll kick it off in just a few moments. Okay, we'll give it just another few moments to get everyone logged in on online. But in the meantime, again, if I can ask that you turn the camera on if you're willing to share, and then mute yourself while we're in our meeting today. To introduce myself, I'm Paige. I am the Chief of Staff for State Representative Christina Shelton. I'm excited and honored to have you all on our coalition meeting today as partners with our legislative office and in this great work out in our communities. I will be kind of leading us along in this meeting today, but I ask you all again to mute yourself. If you have any questions or thoughts that come up throughout any of our guest speakers today, or any questions you may have about the legislation or anything about the coalition, please put them in the chat box and I will try to moderate and fit them in as we can throughout our meeting today. But otherwise, again, thank you for joining us. And I will pass it over to Representative Shelton to get us started.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our first Healthy School Meals for All coalition meeting. We are so thrilled that you are joining us here today. Honestly, this is like the highlight of our legislative office work, and to be joining you all as we prioritize and reimagine school meals, not just through the legislative priority list and through the legislative eye, but through this community organizing structure with all of you, because we are doing this work with you and we're doing this work because of you. And we know that you have been working tirelessly and heroically for years to feed kids and to ensure that no kid in Wisconsin goes hungry, and to ensure healthy school meals are delivered to our Wisconsin students every single day. But we also know that since March of 2020, you have, oh, my mom's calling me, sorry. She loves to call me during meetings. We know that you have, what you have achieved since March of 2020 has been just incredibly inspiring. And we have done something, you have done something that we never thought would be possible. People told us wasn't possible, and that was to feed all kids. And that is what you have been doing for almost 2 years now. So this bill we're going to be talking about today, and this coalition, is really about reimagining school meals in Wisconsin. It is about reframing the conversation around school meals, and it is about working together to advance school meals, to improve school meals, and to identify additional priorities that are on your list. Because I really believe that we're only going to achieve this when we all work together. So I'm thrilled to be here today and be kicking this off. And before we get any further in our agenda, I'd also like to just introduce my colleague, Representative Francesca Hong from the 76th Assembly District, who was also my co-author on this legislation. Rep. Hong, are you with us? You want to jump on and introduce yourself?
Thanks so much, Rep. Shelton. Good morning, everyone. Very excited to be sharing space with you all. Happy Korean American Day. That's why I'm currently wearing a hanbok right now. January 13th is Korean American Day, so I managed to get my kid to wear one as well for about 5 minutes. This legislation, AB 805, the Healthy Meals for All, is incredibly personal. And I know that it's personal for so many of you as I think this is a legislation that can really canning how vital our public school food service workers are. How healthy meals for kids is really the way that we can get all of our children the start that they need, and also kind of think differently about the role that our public school food services and the role it plays in the greater food system. I know that when I talk to other chefs, especially chefs who are moms and dads, you know, the community work that they're most passionate about are the food that goes to their kids and to their kids' friends. And so whether it be, you know, we think differently about food service workers, how we're preparing meals for kids, how we're connecting to farmers. These are all ways that we can collectively work to really bring transformational change to public education, the food system, and really, again, this being about something that can be done, and we're choosing not to do it because of policy. So I'm excited to get to work with all of you, continue to learn from you, and really do what's best for our kids, what's right for our kids, and getting them healthy meals for all.
Thank you so much, Rep Hong. It's exciting to have you as part of this coalition. Rep Hong and I have worked on a number of legislative projects, and it's just exciting to be able to continue to have fun and joy in the work that we do. So, and if we didn't mention yet, if you haven't introduced yourself yet in the chat, if you could take a moment to do so, just your name, maybe the organization, maybe a sentence or two about why you are here today. We have so many people on the call. While I would love to go around and have everyone introduce themselves, we would not get to the work that we have to get to today. So take a moment to do that. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention our colleague, Senator Chris Larson, who is the Senate lead on this bill, and as well as our other colleagues in both the Assembly and the Senate. Many of them are here today. I see a few of you on my screen, Rep. Considine, Senator Agard, and many others, and also their staff for joining this call, for supporting this legislation, for their tireless work on hunger and public schools, communities, and economic development, and supporting our farmers. We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you. So thank you, colleagues, for joining us today. So Paige, I'm going to turn it back over to, oh, actually, no, I'm not going to turn it back over to you. I'm going to talk a little bit about our purpose, and then I'm going to turn it over to Paige. So we have 3 key areas today that we're going to cover, and that are going to help us prioritize our time together, not just today, but moving forward for this coalition. So the first key priority issue is that our work is really centered around ensuring that we provide school meals to all Wisconsin students, a breakfast and a lunch free at no cost, beyond June 2022, when we know the federal waivers are going to expire. We have many different ways that we can tackle this issue, and that's why we're bringing many different types of partners from different levels, whether it be the local, the state, or the federal level. But we have essentially 6 months to make sure that we don't go backwards in taking food away from kids. We want to make sure we keep going and keep moving forward. This coalition is also here to organize and to prioritize and reframe school meals. There is so much momentum happening with this bill, but again, as I said, that momentum comes from you because of the work that you've been doing tirelessly for years. So we want to prioritize school meals and the school meal food system, not just in 2022, but in years to come. And then the third sort of key issue area is identifying other legislative and advocacy priorities to improve and expand the food system and infrastructure. So this could include looking at food service workers, benefits, pay, and benefits. This could be looking at food waste or farm to school programming. There's a number of different key issue areas that link directly to the Healthy School Meals for All bill that we should be prioritizing and continuing to elevate, so that we see this as a comprehensive approach to reimagining the meals that our kids eat every single day, including mine, who are in 5th and 8th grade. So those are sort of the purpose areas for us. And before we move forward with the some updates at the different levels of action, I'm going to turn it over to Paige. She's going to provide a little bit of a status update on AB 805.
So I am happy to report out that our Assembly bill, which opened for co-sponsorship on November 17th, I believe, was assigned an Assembly bill number, which means we have this great legislative homepage where anyone and everyone in our community who may be interested in reading the bill text, seeing what organizations have registered in favor with the Ethics Commission, and eventually a fiscal estimate will be available on this site. This will be a great homepage for anyone out in the community who's looking to keep track of the bill's progress. Currently, we have an assembly version that's waiting for scheduling in the Committee of Education, but otherwise available is the bill text again here, and then hopefully within the next 5 days or so, we should have a fiscal estimate from the Department of Public Instruction as what their agency believes the cost of this bill may be. This is also a great point to showcase many of our legislative co-authors who are available here. And as we get out and working in our community to talk to more of our colleagues across the aisle and in our communities to sign on to the bill as well, you'll be able to keep track of who has been added to the bill here. And I'll share this link in the chat as well.
All right, thanks, Paige. And I know we're going to talk a little bit later about the Healthy School Meals for All website. But you can also visit that at Healthy School Meals for All Wisconsin, WI.org. And that also will be updated periodically for additional coalition updates and legislative priorities. Okay. So we're going to move into a section here to provide some levels of action updates on healthy school meals. We're going to hear both updates at the federal level, the state level, and the local level, because as I mentioned earlier, there's many different levers that are available to us that we can push and pull and kind of explore as action opportunities to advance the priorities that we've discussed as being sort of the guiding framework for our coalition. So Paige, I'm assuming you're going to be introducing our speakers today, and we'll be taking some questions in the chat as well, making sure that we have time to answer your questions. Depending on the number of questions, we may or may not be able to get to everyone, but if you have something outstanding, we'll be certainly reaching out to key partners after today to circle back with you. So Paige, I'm going to throw it back over to you.
Yes, thank you. To begin our discussion of our levels of action, I would like to introduce Maureen Fitzgerald, who's the Vice President of Government Relations with Feeding America of Eastern Wisconsin, and Colin McGinn, who's the Director of Advocacy for the Hunger Task Force. So their goal today will be to discuss what we can do at the federal level, looking at Build Back Better and our federal partners as well.
And sorry, Paige, I'm just going to jump in real quick, Maureen, just so you know, Colin's not with us. He had a family emergency, so you're on your own today, but I assume you've got this.
Yeah, thank you. I am happy to go over sort of what's happening at the federal level and hopefully spark people into action because I think there are really specific actions we can take at the federal level. So I feel like we've been talking about Build Back Better for almost a year now, right? But we are optimists here, right? We are here today to talk about feeding kids, and I think just based on that fact that we're here on a cold day in Wisconsin talking about feeding kids, that we are all optimists, right? So Build Back Better at the federal level has passed the House, but needs to get through the Senate. But what I'm going to talk about today is really what's inside of that bill in terms of child nutrition, because there are some really key pieces in there that would impact how much this bill would cost in the state of Wisconsin. And the main thing really within Build Back Better for child nutrition is around a program called community eligibility. So what community eligibility is a program that allows schools to feed all kids breakfast and lunch for free if the school is eligible. In Wisconsin, we do a really good job for eligible schools of taking up this program, but what Build Back Better would do is offer it not only as a statewide option, so the state of Wisconsin could do community eligibility as a state, but it also expands eligibility for schools. So more schools could use community eligibility to feed their kids. What this means for this particular bill in Wisconsin would be more federal funding to feed kids, right? Because more schools that do community eligibility, it would increase the federal funding for free and reduced price meals in Wisconsin. There would be a state investment in community eligibility for the state of Wisconsin. The way it looks right now is about between 88 and 93% of school meals would be free at the highest federal rate under community eligibility if we did it statewide. But then the state would be responsible for the rest of it. But basically what I think we can know about Build Back Better is it's all about the Senate. So talk to your state senators. We're in an election year. People are focused on the state Senate or the US Senate. Please call Senator Johnson's office. Please call Senator Baldwin's office. She's been a huge supporter of Build Back Better, and talk to them about the provisions in Build Back Better that would help feed more kids in Wisconsin. So I think that's a really easy ask at the federal level, focusing on the US Senate and getting them hopefully to go back and focus on Build Back Better. Everything we're hearing is it's not dead. So cross your fingers. It's getting smaller, but not dead. So the child nutrition so far has all survived in Build Back Better. So that's my update.
Maureen, just a follow-up question for you. If we were to pass that provision for statewide community eligibility, can you talk about how that would impact the fiscal for our bill, and how this bill also sets us up nicely if that were to happen in Congress?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of discussion at the federal level about how important it has been in the last 18 months to provide free meals for kids during the pandemic. And so what you're doing in Wisconsin, and sort of your leadership in Wisconsin, is saying, please don't take that away from kids. And I think that's so important, but it's expensive if Wisconsin has to do it by ourselves. And so what Build Back Better really would do, in my opinion, and doing the math before the bill passes, right? We've got language, but nothing's passed yet, but I think it would cut the fiscal at least in half, and probably more. So if we did as a state, if they pass Build Back Better, and then we as a state adopted community eligibility, which would allow us to feed all of our kids for free, what happens is then there becomes a formula on how the feds reimburse for free meals, right? And so under that formula, by our calculation, about 88 to 93% of all school meals in the state of Wisconsin would be reimbursed at the federal level at the highest rate. Which means that Wisconsin would have to come in and make up that extra 7%, or, you know, a little bit more. So it depends, but at least it cuts it in half. So that's my non-math answer to your question.
No, I appreciate that. And I think it's just important to highlight too, because the fiscal that we'll get back is not going to take into account if that were to happen. So it's been difficult to have conversations with people to say, yes, we'll have a fiscal, but there's so many moving parts here that's not really going to be a hard number, because it will be dependent on other action items.
Yeah, and what I will do is I'll put in the chat, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities in DC, along with FRAC, which is the Food Research Action Center, have put together state-specific analysis with some help from state partners. And I'll put Wisconsin's in so you can sort of take a look at where we're getting those numbers from.
That would be great. And also just to point out too, and then we'll open it up for a moment of questions, that there is a bill that has been proposed by Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Gwen Moore called the Universal School Meals Program Act that would seek to make permanent the Universal School Meals Program. So there's also a bill aside from the provision in Build Back Better. I'm going to pause here. We can maybe take one or two questions for Maureen, focusing on the federal action items. Paige, do you see anything in the chat?
I do not have anything in the chat so far. If you would like to ask any questions at this point in the chat, please feel free to unmute yourself. Or again, we will have time at the very end for questions. If you're simmering on something now and expect it may be answered, we can always come back.
Paige, do you see the question that just came through about the consideration of the child? I just lost my chat about the child nutrition reauthorization.
Yes. So to Maureen, if you'd be willing to take this one, if you have any thoughts on the child nutrition reauthorization and the status.
Sure. So what we're hearing from federal partners is child nutrition reauthorization really focuses on all of those child nutrition, like school meals, right? That's where a lot of the funding comes from and the authorization for how those programs operate. What we're hearing right now is that there's probably going to be a focus on the Farm Bill first and then child nutrition reauthorization second, but there are a number of marker bills that are happening, including that Senator Bernie Sanders and Congresswoman Gwen Moore's bill that would provide universal free meals for all kids in the country. There are a number of other ones that also focus on summer meals, on expanded reimbursement, on community eligibility, and expanding that program similar to Build Back Better. So there are a number of marker bills right now, but in terms of a package for child nutrition reauthorization, what we're hearing, and I don't ever want to hold out that I know what's going to happen in Washington. Every time I guess I'm wrong. But what we're hearing is they're going to start focusing on the Farm Bill, which is also got nutrition pieces in it, but just not the school nutrition in it. So there'll be a lot of talk about SNAP and WIC, I think, in the upcoming months, and then they'll focus on child nutrition.
Great, thank you, Maureen. That's another great purpose to show how intersectional the issue of school nutrition is. It brings in so many different factors of other progressive pieces of legislation that can really see to advance all of our goals. I believe in the chat we had another recommendation from Peter Bakken for a podcast about the Universal Free School Meals Bill. Again, another point that I love to make about our work here at the state level, and then also Representative Gwen Moore's work at the federal level, is that Wisconsin wants free meals for kids and that there's work at every level for this progressive piece of policy to pass. I think if we have any more questions in the chat, I can loop around to them at the very end of our call today. But next, I would like to introduce Caitlin Harrison and Jamie Wilson from the Wisconsin School Nutrition Association to discuss what we can be doing at the state level for policy.
So Jamie, do you want to go first or would you like me to?
I'm going to let you have the floor, Caitlin.
All right. So the impact of this bill would be, so incredibly significant. I think besides the surface level, what does it do for our kids, which is obviously the main point. What this does for people in districts and our communities is give not just our students more opportunity, but also the employees who work in our district more opportunity, and also to really just give the students that we're feeding a much more increased chance for a healthy life, right? So I think besides what it looks like on paper right now, it has a much bigger impact. It has a much bigger impact for our communities. That money is going to be going right back to our communities and the people who work in our kitchens. And in turn, those people also have kids in the district. So it's really full circle from what I can tell. I've had the opportunity to work through COVID and these free meals in 2 different districts now. And the impact that I have seen with breakfast alone has been significant. I can't tell you, we've increased breakfast participation from 25 to 50% across all of our buildings. And it's not just about those students who were previously approved for free or reduced meals. It's also about parents who don't have time in the morning to feed their kids. I myself know how challenging it is to be a working mom and to get kids out the door in the morning, to have that as a safety net, to know that my kids are getting a healthy, free meal is so impactful. And I just know that that's taken care of. In addition, I think it really helps support those students who maybe are on the cusp, or the families who are on the cusp of qualifying for free or reduced meals, but they're falling through the cracks. Or maybe they have employment that is only part of the year, and they've applied for free and reduced meals during the part of the year where they're working, but they're laid off in the winter months. And they really need support from their communities to be able to continue to provide food for their families. So it's so much more encompassing than what's on paper. And I think a lot of us know that here, but I just really wanted to highlight the fact that it does mean that we can pay our employees a living wage, and we can do more for them and provide them benefits to be able to do better in life and just keep going. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jamie if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I do. Caitlin hit it on the mark. What we see every day since March of 2020, we're feeding kids in school and out of school. We're really good at feeding them in school, and we've gotten really good at feeding them out of school. And we know they come to us for those meals. There's one thing that we do in this program that doesn't make any sense to me. It's the only thing that our kids come to school for each and every day, where we ask what your parents make, what kind of income is in your family. Why is that? Why is that on us as food service employees, as directors, as departments? Why do we put that on our kids who come through our lines? We feed kids, and that's what we want to do. And we've proven that we can do this for the last almost 2 years. And we are so excited to see this many people that aren't in our shoes every day wanting to help us with this. I think that's the part that hits home. Is this is the part of the school day that we are asking parents to provide information on their income and how we decide if they're going to be charged or not. In this day and age, I can't figure out how that's equitable, how it's just not in good conscience. Part of what we do every day is something we should be doing.
Thank you, Jamie. And I think, we've talked about school meals being just as important to academic learning and success in the school as desks and chairs, pencils and books. Healthy or, hungry bellies are not an ingredient to success while their kids are at school, aside from the moral value that we have of we should just feed kids, right? Representative Hong, I haven't heard from you at all. I wanted to see if you had any questions or any comments and kind of what you've heard so far from Jamie, Caitlin, or Maureen.
Thanks so much, Christina, Jamie, Maureen, and Caitlin. It's good to see you all again. I think one component I want to bring in here, and I think Paige alluded to this before, but just the intersection of how we can strengthen our local economies while doing this very needed and the right thing to do in feeding our kids healthy meals, right? And that's bringing in and really taking this opportunity to listen to our food service workers who, I think about this from a worker justice perspective as well, and just how that's George, and how listening to them and the relationships that they have with the kids at our schools and what can we do to ensure that there's sustainability and longevity in their careers, and how food service work is a career. I think having those conversations can and should stem from this legislation, and it's just another component as to why it's incredibly important for us to think about just the impact of a local economy, the workers that are in food service, and how that is all related to feeding our kids.
And Rep Hong, I love that you were able to get that out with having your child in your face, because Lord, haven't we all been there? So good job. No, I agree. And, I see the author on this call, Jennifer Gaddis. I have your book here. Here it is, The Labor of Lunch. It's on my desk. And that's right. I mean, the way that we've been talking about this bill is not just an investment in public education, but it's an investment in our local economy. It's an investment in workers, and it's also an investment in agriculture and local farmers. And that was actually one of the ways that Caitlin and I originally got connected. Was we went to a local farm here outside of Green Bay, and we talked about the economic boom that happened with our farmers when additional product was needed with the Green Bay Public Schools. And Lynette, I see you on here too from Green Bay. And it was so amazing to see the way that farmers are stepping up and really shortening the food system cycle to get food and cover those gaps. It's been really inspirational. So let's open it up here for questions for anyone, for Caitlin and Jamie with the Wisconsin SNA. Anyone have anything for our guests today?
I'd like to give voice to, first of all, Representative Hong with the example of a happy and healthy child and the beauty that comes from that. And then also Michael Gasper's comment in the chat about how this additionally builds on the intersectionality of free school meals in that it removes the stigma that comes along with free and reduced meals. To the same extent that Jamie mentioned of the burden on administration to ask students and ask their families about their income, this is a total topic that gets wiped out in the passage of this legislation, where we're no longer considering who's a free and reduced price child as opposed to all students being viewed the same.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that too, Paige. Thanks for bringing that up, that, you know, this bill covers all kids, both private and public school kids, K-12, no questions asked. This basically wipes clean school meal debt and shaming. And, you know, I was having a conversation with my senator, Eric Wimberger, who has not supported this bill. So reach out to him if you feel compelled to. And he said, why should we be feeding all kids? And I said, well, when we feed all kids, this has dramatic and significant impacts on attendance and reduction in tardiness, improvements in behavior. There's connections to math and reading and learning. There's less trips to the nurse's office. So when we feed all kids, the benefits ripple through every single kid and family, regardless of whether they have a need or not. And I think those statistics and those stories are really important as we talk about why all means all.
Christina, I want to say thank you. I think this is just wonderful that we're having this conversation on this. And everyone who does not know me, my name is Lynette Aquino, and I am the director at Green Bay Area School District. And also, you know, with the free and reduced applications, just because there is a salary on paper does not necessarily mean that there is still food in that home. And that is just something that we see that every day. And now with how we are feeding, we're feeding more children. And the percentage of the students that are participating has gone up immensely. And we have a school that they just thought we never needed to serve breakfast at. And we are serving breakfast at that school, and we are at 42%. And that is something that has been amazing. We have a gifted and talented school that we never served breakfast at, and we are serving over 40% at that school. And yeah, these are celebrations that we need to have. And I know I'm just not speaking for Green Bay. I'm sure everyone else has success stories, but also when brought up about getting parents' salary, just because they're over the free or reduced does not mean there's still food available for those children. So thank you.
I'd like to add to what Lynette said, if I could. I'm Michael Gasper. I'm the past president of SNA Wisconsin. I also serve on National's Public Policy and Legislative Committee. So I'm involved in some of these conversations with child reauthorization and some other things. But a family can make $100,000. It doesn't mean that that child has got the money in their account or the ability to eat. Unfortunately, there's a lot of absent parents. And what this does is it provides equity across the board. It treats all kids the same. It wipes out the stigma. It guarantees each kid starts the day on the same footing. And able to learn and do what they need to do. And that's why we should feed all kids. And that's the simple answer to that, Senator. Unfortunately, he's not my district, or I'd give him a call. But, you know, hopefully I'm speaking to the choir here a little bit because I know you're all on the same page with me. But it's something I've been very passionate about. I know Caitlin, Jamie, SNA has been pushing for a long, long time. And just even be on a call like this is amazing. So thank you to everyone who's been involved in writing this bill. And hopefully we can get something done because it's so important, I believe, in breaking the cycle of poverty. We won't break that cycle if we don't give these kids a good opportunity. And that's what this is really about.
Thank you, Michael. And you know, this is not just an urban issue. This is across the board. We know there are many different compounding barriers for families, working parents it's one less thing to take off their plate, so there's so many good reasons to do that. Thanks for sharing that. And I did see a question come in about a coalition bringing in representatives from organized labor. The WEAC did sign on as a supporter to the bill. I don't know if they're in this meeting today. We will be working with them, as well as AFT Wisconsin, which does have chapters in the K-12 sector, to work with labor union organizers and leaders. But beyond that, I think what we have done, which I think is so exciting about this coalition, is we have supporters in non-traditional areas around school meals, such as social workers and counselors and therapists and organizations that work on domestic abuse. So we are really trying to think broadly about bringing all different types of people together to elevate this issue. So we'll definitely be prioritizing our labor union leaders. All right, Paige, we're going to turn it back to you because I think we have another series of guests.
Yes. So as we've looked at the federal level, we've looked at the state level. The next speaker I would like to introduce is Heather Dubois-Bournain from Wisconsin Public Education Network, who will also bring along representation from the Sun Prairie School Board to talk about what we can do at the local level.
So, thanks, Paige, and thanks for giving us an opportunity to share some of the things that we've been doing locally. I know many of you from the work that I do as director of Wisconsin Public Education Network, which is a statewide nonpartisan coalition that just works to advocate for educational equity in all forms. And school nutrition and addressing student hunger needs is a huge part of that. So many of our partners around the state are very enthusiastic about the bill and appreciative of it. And I just want to say before I introduce the rest of the folks who are here that this is just such an exemplary gathering. So Representative Shelton and Representative Hong especially, thank you so much for all of the outreach that you've done in creating awareness of this bill, getting it a bill number, and just connecting all of the dots. If we saw this energy around every good bill that was in the hopper, imagine what we could do together as a state. So I just love being here and I'm so grateful for you and your convening of this conversation. But I think I'm here today mainly to talk about what we're doing in Sun Prairie. So when I take off my day job hat as a community member here in Sun Prairie, I work with a group called SPARC, which stands for Sun Prairie Action Resource Coalition. And we've worked for many years with the school district to help identify and address some student hunger needs that require a little bit of additional community support or advocacy or fundraising or even just volunteer hours. So we've done a snack program. We've helped push for a couple of policy changes around lunch shaming and other things. And have also just worked to amplify some of the things that the district or the board is doing that address student equity needs as they relate to hunger and other things, and just make them a little bit more visible. And so in that work, we have just been so impressed with the way our school district has prioritized this issue. And so I invited a couple of people who know the most about that to share what they've been doing with you today. And so the folks who are here from Sun Prairie today are, first of all, our nutrition director, Kathy Walker. Second, our school board president, Steve Schrader, and our vice president, Bryn Horton. And then our community schools director, Jamie Racine. And so I don't think we're each going to make a long speech or anything, but I thought that maybe each person could just share a couple of the highlights of the things that they're really most excited or stoked about that they're doing around this issue. And then we can just answer any questions that you all have about how we work together collaboratively at the end. Sound good? And so why don't we start with Kathy?
Hi, I'm Kathy Walker. I've been in the Sun Prairie School District for about 6 years now, and it's been amazing to me the thought process in the community and also by the school board on we need to make sure kids aren't put in the middle of making sure they have money in their account. So we have developed a lot of different processes around making sure that when a student comes to the lunch line, nobody can see that they are free or reduced. Also that every student who gets in line will get a meal no matter what. Now, we do have a pretty a process we've worked on for 6 years now of making sure we can try to collect that debt. But as we've seen, there has been a whole lot of students and that have parents that just, they can't come up with that money. And so within 3 years, it becomes uncollectible debt, and the district has been gracious in paying for those meals and the uncollectible debt. And in the last 3 years, they have given us $132,000. We have also had our Hunger Heroes program, which Spark has worked to get community people and businesses to donate money for some of that debt. And so, you know, that's an ongoing process, of course. But what's been so great is we've expanded in so many different areas. First of all, the nutrition program is allowed to just eat the debt of the 30 and 40 cents reduced eligible students so that they don't have to worry, because that is definitely a barrier. We also have after school snacks, and we're having more and more schools doing after school snacks, because that's a very long day for kids to be in school, have 2 meals, and then do something after school and have nothing until they get home at night. And for some of these students, we all know that they do not have food at home at night. So I have been so impressed. We've also we have 2 schools that do community eligibility provision, and that has helped dramatically in, number one, increasing the number of kids eating with us, but also the money that parents would normally spend on those meals is going into our community. We know that. And if you think about what's going on right now with COVID, food prices have gone up dramatically. And I would say that that helps not only the community, but I don't foresee these prices going down on food. I mean, it's gone up dramatically in the last 3 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Heather, who would go next from your group to speak about the Sun Prairie work?
I think it would be great if maybe Jamie could talk a little bit about what Community Schools is doing, and then we can end on the policy note, and Bryn can fill us in on what the board is drafting now, and maybe what any other policy items they want to highlight.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie Racine. I'm the Community School Program Coordinator here in Sun Prairie, and I also chair our Wisconsin Coalition for Community Schools. So many of those districts are represented here on the call. So there's 6 other districts that do this type of work around our state, and that's Green Bay, La Crosse, Milwaukee, Racine, Madison, and Appleton. So I want to give them voice too, and know that this type of work is not unique to Sun Prairie. As a part of our community school work, one of the 4 pillars of community schools is integrated student supports. And I think about that like our basic needs support that we provide to both students and families. And as a piece of that, we've done a few different things regarding addressing hunger with our students and our families. All 5 of our current community school sites have a school-based food pantry. Last year, we received over 15,000 pounds of food in donations that we then turned around and moved out to students during the school day, as well as families through neighborhood distributions and weekend food support. During the pandemic, our school district did an amazing job of providing weekend meal boxes as well as the school meal boxes. With that funding gone away, we've worked with our city to be able to provide a gap stop in that. So starting at the end of last calendar year, we instituted with partnerships weekend meal support across our community. So we work with Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, Second Harvest, as well as our local food pantry to ensure that we have weekend meals that are getting out to students and families. We also do weekly neighborhood distributions in 3 of our highest poverty areas here in Sun Prairie. And we're also giving out, basic need items like toothbrushes and dog food. We take care of our 4-legged family members as well. I don't think there's a federal program that supports them, so we got to take care of those guys as well. And have just been really grateful. I came to Sun Prairie in March of 2020. Actually, March 16th was my very first day. And at 8:01 on my very first day, I sat in a room with 20 individuals and leaders from around our community to talk about how we're going to support food for kids during this time. That was the very first thing that came to mind in our community, and the top priority that we needed to address. And so I've been continually impressed, and I say that to share that there is a shared value in supporting our children through food. And I just think that this is such a wonderful program and much needed. So I appreciate the time here today to share a little bit about what we've been able to do, and happy to answer any questions after Bryn shares a little bit about the policy side of things.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bryn Horton. I'm the Vice President of the Sun Prairie School Board. Steve, our president, is on the phone, so he asked me to talk for us. And I'm going to give him a shout out because he is really the one who has pushed in Sun Prairie to make sure that lunch shame doesn't happen. And we have a policy in our district that all kids get fed a meal, no matter what, whether they have a lunch balance or not. And so that has been a big priority of Steve's and the rest of the boards to make sure that we make sure all the kids in our community are fed. So when I heard about this bill, I was super excited. And so one of the things that our board does is we pass resolutions, because that's how we then have permission from ourselves to be able to advocate for certain legislation. And so we are currently working on a resolution from our district that we will pass hopefully in February. And then that will get shared with the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. And then we are willing to share and work with other school districts to be able to do that as well. And so that's generally how we do things. And then that gets pushed out also to all our representatives at the state level, because our school district actually has, I think, 11 legislators that touch our school district boundaries. So we're able to push that out to a lot of legislators as we're supporting this. We will advocate, we will come, we will testify at public hearings and do whatever we need to do. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bryn. And thank you for your service on the Sun Prairie School Board. I was on the Green Bay School Board prior to serving in the assembly, and I was there at the beginning of COVID, and then I left in January, and I know about, and we all know about the quite frankly, the hell that many school board members have been living through. So thank you for your service to our kids and to supporting public schools in Wisconsin. And I want to just highlight and thank you for your work on this resolution. I think this is a good concrete step that we should be thinking about from a coalition perspective of how we can be organizing around a similar structure. If you would be willing, Bryn, at some point to share, like you said, the sample resolution that you've drafted so that we could provide that to other districts. I think that is a way that we could put a little bit of pressure on our local school boards, but also potentially on our city councils or our local municipal governments, county boards as well, and think creatively about who you can talk to and the levers that exist in front of you that you can pull to let people know that you care about feeding kids in our K-12 schools. So we did talk to Heather and her membership about this last week as well. So this is something I think we're going to have to put a little bit more work behind to get this going, but I appreciate you getting the ball rolling. Before we move on, I'm going to pause there. Does anyone have any questions for Heather or the folks representing Sun Prairie today? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. We appreciate you, Kathy, Jamie, Bryn, Heather. Keep kicking ass down there. We appreciate you all. All right, we're going to move on. We're wrapping up here. Our time is almost coming to an end. And so we have a couple next steps that we're going to be following up with you all about in regard to what this coalition is aiming to achieve. So the first thing is we have put together a coalition survey that is going to go out immediately after this meeting wraps up, or as soon as Paige is able to put this all into an email and send this to you. What the survey is aiming to do is to get more information from you about feedback that you have regarding the Healthy School Meals for All bill, other priorities for legislative action or advocacy or grassroots organizing around school meals, and some other feedback about how often you would like the coalition to meet and the structure of these meetings. My hope is that this will be a sustainable space for us to continue these conversations, to not only support each other, but to really keep a sustained level of pressure on the state to feed kids. So we'll be sending that to you. And we would appreciate if you could get that. I think the due date is not this Friday, but next Friday, the 21st. So we'll be sending that out. Feel free to send that survey out to any key partners that you have as well in your networks. And also please engage your stakeholders. This is the second ask with the Healthy School Meals for All website. So that's healthyschoolmealsforallwisconsin.org. Paige is going to put that in the chat. Thank you to Maureen. She helped us get this website up. This site has information about the bill. We're going to be adding more information on here, but it also has all of our organizations and folks who have signed on in support of the bill. So if you haven't joined the coalition formally yet and you want your logo on the website, there is a link on the website to officially join the coalition. And there's also a press kit with social media, template messaging, and graphics and so forth. So please engage within your organizations and within your communities around this bill. And then the second piece to this is advocacy. When you go to the website, there is a link to contact your elected officials. There's a pre-form letter in there that you can send. You can identify who your elected officials are. But again, please start reaching out to local and state officials using that social media toolkit and messaging. So again, to reiterate, 3 things: survey, stakeholder engagement, and advocacy opportunities to keep this going. So I'm going to pause there. Paige, is there anything that I've forgotten to mention that we need to say before we wrap up here? You're muted.
I think we are very covered. Again, thank you all for joining us today. I will put the contact information for our office in the chat if you have any follow-up questions that may arise after this call, or have any ideas or things that you'd like a more personal touch on. We are available all the time by email and by phone to continue this discussion.
And we did record this meeting as well, and we will be uploading it and sending you the recording, so you're welcome to share that with other folks as well. So we have a few minutes before we wrap up. Does anyone have any outstanding questions or comments for the good of the group?
First of all, thank you, Rep. Shelton and Paige, so much for your leadership on this and your perseverance and organizing. I think it's exactly what we need to continue to sustain and keep the pressure up on the importance of this bill. I just wanted to note once more that both Rep. Shelton and I are here to listen to your ideas. And so if we always want to make space for organizing ideas, things that you would like to see legislators do more of when it comes to bills like this. It's important that this leadership coalition group here is seen as one of co-leadership. So if there are things that you are wanting us to do or that you'd like to see more from our offices specifically, please do not hesitate to reach out or make direct asks of us as well.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Representative Maura Makunde. I want to reiterate what Representative Hong has stated and thank Representative Shelton and Representative Hong for your leadership on this effort. This is a very much needed aspect in our state and in our schools. And I want to make sure that we're making sure that we're providing nourishment and providing good meals to our students as they attempt to deal with the mental trajectory of our education in the state of Wisconsin. I'm wondering, I missed the first part of the meeting. I'm wondering if we have any Republicans signed on to the bill as well, or is anyone from the other side of the aisle championing this to any degree that you two are?
Oh, Representative Maura Makunde, that you always ask the hard-hitting questions, and that's the million-dollar question. Will we ever get a Republican to support this bill? Not at this time, but you know the work. We're going to keep chipping at it. My hope too is that once we get a fiscal, and if we can get the Build Back Better provision passed, that hopefully bringing that fiscal down, maybe that will be an additional carrot to bring some Republicans along. We know that there have been Republicans in the past that have championed supporting public schools and have worked to eliminate school meal debt. So we'll be prioritizing those, and you know, any support that you can give us or ideas that you have from your office, we would be grateful for that. And thank you so much for being here today and being with us on this issue.
Absolutely, no problem. And I'm on the bill, aren't I?
I believe so. You can be.
Okay. Just making sure.
And we do have a question in here too about, do you have recommendations for sending the best timing to send out an action alert? Maureen, I'm going to send that over to you. What thoughts do you have on that?
Well, I think that we can build on the momentum that we have today. So I say early and often, right? Like I agree that you know, we're in a short legislative session right now. So right now, talk to all of your representatives, reach out, talk to people. I messaged Bryn, but what we'll do on the website is we'll also put school board resolution drafts for you. We'll put some language for your count to reach out to your county board or your local common council to do support of this bill. But yeah, the Representative Shelton already put a link to an action alert that's already out there. I know that Peter Bakken and his organization, Wisconsin Council of Churches, did an action alert around feeding kids. So I say all of us, we have diverse.
Maureen, you went muted halfway through.
Oh, I was messing with my thing. I said we all have a diverse group of people that we represent and that are our constituents. So I think reach out, do an action alert early and often.
Awesome. Thanks, Maureen. And I see Representative Robin Vining with her hand up. Rep Vining.
Hi, thanks. I'm sorry for breaking the rule of not turning my camera on while I talk, but I'm on my phone and the wireless isn't working for some reason. So quick question. You mentioned, you know, Republicans who've worked on eliminating lunch debt. And I was just wondering, with Rep Talkin having, you know, championed that in the past, as well as him, he comes from a farming family. What are you hearing from his office? And if you'd rather take that offline, you can. Thanks.
Rep Hong, I think you were the one that reached out to Rep Talkin. Do you have any updates there?
Not yet, but fortunately we're in session next week and I plan to make some one-on-one conversations with folks on the floor.
Yeah,
he likes donuts, Fran. He likes donuts.
Are they donuts that meet the nutritional standards of our public school meals?
I don't know.
Are they whole grain? Yeah, and I think Rep Vining, within the building, our colleagues, we could be looking at some of the, you know, representatives and senators that we could get online or get on board with this. And that should be another key aspect of the coalition for sure, especially as we look to some of you in the community leading on this too. So good point. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up. We're almost to the top of the hour. Thank you again so much for joining us. I know you are all so busy, so we're going to be following up with you. If you need anything from us in the meantime, don't hesitate to reach out. We're all in this together, and I have no doubt that we're going to figure out a path forward. So appreciate you all and have a great rest of your day. Take care.